I call on my chaplain to lead us in prayer.
As we rapidly approach Christmas with its message of peace, foremost in our minds, the community and families torn apart by the events in Peshawar in Pakistan, I'd like to share with you the official prayer that goes along with the centenary celebrations for the outbreak of peace at the Christmas truce 100 years ago. So as we remember the peace that arose in the most unlikely of places 100 years ago, we lift up places still dominated by conflict today. Where the foundations of our world are shaking, remind us of the strength of your love. Where there are tears of grief, remind us that you share in our lament and heartbreak. Where hostility dominates the landscape, remind us of the beauty of respecting and listening to one another. Where darkness and despair seem to prevail, remind us that Christmas was about the coming of light into the world. And as we bring these prayers for peace to you, O God, remind us that we are your hands and feet in your world, and so teach us to choose peace in our own lives, to choose forgiveness and love, today, this Christmas, and each day beyond that. In Jesus' name, amen. So if you wish to, please pray with me the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
And while we're still standing, could we have a minute's silence for the children of Pakistan? Please be seated. Apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillor Zafina Ashad, Mike Atwood, Adam Aston, Nick Gregory, Karen Jordan, Hazel Turner and Ken Turner. Are there any further apologies for absence?
Councillor Kettle and Barlow, Madam. Councillor Murray.
Councillor Murray. Thank you. I would like to welcome Father Christmas.
Ho, 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 Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, Father Christmas is here tonight to ask everyone if they would like to donate to the Mayor's charities. We have a couple of elves, poorly dressed I'm afraid, but elves nevertheless, who will be collecting your monies on the way out. Thank you very much. Ho, 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 everybody, and a Merry Christmas.
Declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest under the members' code of conduct?
No.
No? Mayor's announcements. On the 1st of December, Councillor Pete Lowe was elected as leader of the council. In line with his delegated powers under Part 3 of the Constitution, the leader has appointed Councillor Stuart Turner to the post of deputy leader with effect from the 5th of December. Councillor Dave Sparks has also been appointed to the post of cabinet member without portfolio with effect from the 5th of December. At this point, I would like to place on record my sincere appreciation to Councillor Sparks for his achievements during his time as leader of the council and as leader of the Labour group. I wish Councillor Sparks well in his ongoing work as chair of the LGA, cabinet member and as ward councillor for Quarry Bank and Dudley Wood. Does any member wish to speak?
Councillor Lowe.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I think it's fitting that to say within the 5 minutes to pay a proper tribute to Councillor David Sparks will be absolutely worthless. It would take us several years, I think, in order to be able to look at the contribution that David Sparks has made, not just to Dudley, not just to the government, through the Local Government Association, but importantly to politics as a whole. I think it's absolutely fitting that we have Santa Claus here this evening to be able to sit whilst we pay tribute. Also notice that the councillor hasn't had to spend any extra money on extra padding, so that's welcome as well. Where do we start with Councillor Sparks? Well, I think the starting point is actually council procedures itself. He was actually the leader of the opposition who, following the last meeting, raised the point that we weren't able to pay appropriate tribute for a councillor who has committed so much of their time to the people of local government. Now, many people will know that David was born in Warrington. Many of you may not know the year, and I'm certainly not going to embarrass him, but it was post-Second World War, and I'm sure that's all we need to know. And I'd like to place on record that the only significant shift in politics in Dudley Council will be the movement, natural movement, from Warrington Wolves to the one and only Wolves, and that will be the significant, and that's probably the one thing myself and Councillor Etheridge have got in common. David became a councillor of the West Midlands County Council way back in 1977. I actually got it down as 1877 because there was the formulation of the good old Wolverhampton Wanderers. And he's served on this council, Madam Mayor, since 1986. Now, I think one of the things that we seldom celebrate, and all of us, I think, fall into that, is celebrating the service that each and every one of us do within this chamber. The majority of the work that we undertake isn't recognised, it isn't noticed. And I'm grateful for the Leader of the Opposition in insisting that we have this opportunity this evening to pay our respects. Now, many people will know David, and importantly will know the dry sense of humour when you can get to the sense of humour. I think it took me about 15 years to get to the sense of humour, and then another 4 years to actually understand that sense of humour. And I often think that this is the final twist of his sense of humour that I'm stood here this evening. So thank you very much for that. But the important thing is the transfer from politician, which is where many of us get to know each other, to comrade, to then importantly to friend. And it's that transformation that I think has been so important. I would not be in the position that I find myself in if it hadn't have been for the ability to learn and develop and mentor. And I think that that's a catalyst of his many years' service working within the career service, where he was so many people he's been able to develop into the further careers that they have. I think it's absolutely fitting, Madam Mayor, that we use an opportunity like this to be able to pay our respects for an individual who has selflessly spent many hours, no days, no weeks, no years, actually in chambers such as this, furthering the cause not of himself, but actually of the citizens of this country. So, Councillor Sparks, friend, comrade, socialist, now sitting on the left of me, I applaud you.
Councillor Harley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few words about Councillor Sparks. No one can prepare to actually be standing here in this position, either here or on that side of the chamber. No amount of training or courses can prepare you for what comes when your group appoint you as group leader. And the hardest part of the job is not taking on the controlling group or opposition. The hardest part of this role is your internal group politics. There's no doubt Pete is about to find out. And one of the pleasing aspects of having David as the council leader since February 2013, when I took over this group, is that he had an open door policy where you could walk in and he was always ready to offer advice, not on the political aspects, but on the group management, on family life, on other issues. Just a reassuring word of advice from someone who spent many years in local government, chair of the LGA, just that useful bits of information and advice that just try and steady your nerves at difficult times. And it is difficult running a group, and no amount of training can prepare you for that. I'm sure Anne Millward wasn't prepared when one of my predecessors stepped down. I know Les wasn't prepared when Anne lost her seat. You don't plan for this role. Anybody who says that they do is foolhardy, and I certainly didn't plan when Les stepped down, and most of us get thrown in this role as Pete has now with David stepping down. So it's nice to have that open door policy from the council leader where you can go and seek advice at times when you require it. There's also another side which Councillor Lowe has alluded to, is the people side, the person side of Councillor Sparks. And you certainly don't get that in this chamber. And although we like baiting Councillor Sparks from time to time, and I know since 2004, I think there's a few times I've got him quite angry and red-faced and got the result I wanted. And he's absolutely had to go back and defended the party line very ferociously, like one of the bull terriers he so much loves. But he's defended his party line and he's given as good as he's got. But then when you walk outside the pantomime that is the council chamber, he's there again to offer advice, and it isn't ever personal with Councillor Sparks. And for that he has my utmost respect. And I think it was almost a year ago to the day we were both at Cyril Woodall's funeral, and we both attended the wake afterwards. And I think we had a pint of Bathams, or it might have been one. Was it two? Was it three? We won't go into that. 4. I'm glad you can remember. But it's at times like that when you get to know the real person. And we didn't talk about politics. We spoke about family, about the pressures of life itself. We spoke about personal circumstances. And anyone, Madam Mayor, who likes a pint of real ale and loves Staffordshire Bull Terriers isn't a bad guy in my book. And finally, Madam Mayor, Councillor Sparks has tried to do 2 jobs, Leader of the Council and Chairman of the LGA. It is too much for one person. And I'm glad that you've given one up, because quality of life is important. We are all local politicians in this chamber. We all give as good as we get at each other. Over the next 5 or 6 months, we will kick each other verbally around this chamber and out there on the campaign trail. But at the end of the day, we are all human beings, and quality of life is important. And I hope now that you have stood down from being Leader of the Council, that you do enjoy your quality of life, David. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Cottrell.
Councillor Cottrell.
This is completely off the cuff. Obviously, I've served with David since I first stood in 1999 on the council. He's phenomenal, and I have to say that because I saw leadership in him when I was just coming as a borough observer to the group. I said to the 2 Gornal councillors, and I didn't know him from Adam then, I just knew him as a member of it. I said, you vote for David Sparks. And it was fitting at me. He didn't come leader then, sadly, but it was fitting that he did become leader eventually. I'm sure, well, he's a very learned person, and when we don't have constituents come along to surgery, we talk on all kinds of subjects. And sadly, he thinks he's right on everyone, but I have to put him right sometimes. But he's been absolutely wonderful. We're talking as though we're talking at his funeral. He's still going to be with us. He's in the cabinet. He's going to be in the cabinet, and that's so good. But it is rather, and he has done a splendid job as leader. And it was useful when he was leader, because if I spoke to any officers, and I'd just say, now, I wonder what David Sparks' number is. Oh, just a minute, don't bother. And so it has been useful, but he has made a super job of being leader, and I think it's a privilege for me personally to serve with him as a councillor.
Councillor Crumpton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't going to get up tonight. I always say that one tonight. Well, it's Christmas, isn't it? I just want to say a couple of words about David as a man, really. And I go to the Bull and Bladder. I have been to the Bull and Bladder a couple of times with him to have a couple of pints and have a chat with him about things. And the one thing I'd say that he's able to do with you is give you advice when you need it. And for me, having done this role now for nearly 2.5 years as Children's Services, there have been times when it's been, I can't swear in here, can I? It's been really hard, you know, and personally very hard. And what I want to do is to stand up here tonight and thank David for all the advice and support that you've given me, you know, because sometimes you get to the point within this role where you actually want to throw it in. It becomes too much for you to actually take on board some of the horrible things that you have to deal with, you know, and we've all had to do them when we do these roles, I think. So it is to say thank you for that. I actually do think he's got a brilliant sense of humour. And I got it pretty well quickly, but it's been an Albion supporter, you see. You have to have a sense of humour about most things. So, David, have a great time. I think I just want to disagree with Patrick over there a little bit and say, actually, I thought you managed to be the LGA chair and the group leader extremely successfully, you know. But I actually also believe, because it's something we talked about in the Bull and Bladder, that it is the right time for you to now be able to concentrate and use your experience and your skills at a national level and to help us evolve what Dudley will become within the West Midlands. Thanks, mate.
Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I genuinely wasn't going to speak tonight, but I think David and I are the last two from the old West Midlands County Council. And I think it would have been remiss of me not to have said a few words about David. Over the years, obviously, I've known him since 1977 when I first come across him. I think he's always served with great integrity, every position he's had. I've watched him blossom and grow on Dudley Council, and I've read about him and watched him. I've met him socially a couple of times, but I think now I'm really pleased to see him stand back from the leadership of Dudley Council. Obviously, he's got the leadership of the LGA, and he's doing a great job there. I want to see what happens with this, the Black Country, Birmingham and Black Country, and I hope he has a hand in that and a guiding hand. And I just want to extend our warmth and friendship to him. I know his family, and I'm very pleased that he's standing back now. And as Councillor Cottrell has just mentioned, he's hopefully got a long, long time in front of him to make a big difference to the West Midlands situation. And I congratulate him on everything that he's done. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Father Christmas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't know David at all, actually. As you know, I've only been here tonight. But I would like to wish him a very Merry Christmas and a very healthy New Year.
Councillor Sparks.
Councillor Sparks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Father Christmas. You are a bit early. I just want to say two things, actually. First of all, I can honestly say, and people can verify it, that as the chairman of the LGA, I've certainly modelled the LGA on Dudley Council and the very special spirit that we have got in Dudley Council, which I've said on numerous occasions is at the essence of local government. The second thing I would like to do is to say thank you and to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, given that I don't send anybody any cards.
Councillor Cotterell's lights on again.
Just
Totally not to embarrass David, but of course David has took the role of Father Christmas. When he stood for, and I hope I'm not embarrassing you. When he stood for Parliament for Worcester, as you know, in all kinds of things, and he took the role of Father Christmas. And he has three lads, and they were only very tiny lads, obviously, at the time. And these three lads went to see Father Christmas. I went back to Mary after, and they said, Mum, we know where Father Christmas comes from. Yes, Warrington, because he talks just like our dad.
is that it? Members will be aware that this is the last meeting of the full council before our Chief Executive, John Polykonakis, retires in January. I would like to pay a personal tribute to John and the service he has given to this council since he joined us in the 1980s. John has made an enormous contribution to Dudley, both as a highly professional and respected officer, and also in his contribution to civic life. John started his career as Artie Clerk and a solicitor with Liverpool City Council in 1975, before moving to Sefton MBC as Assistant Director. He joined Dudley as a Senior Assistant Director in 1987. John held the post as Director of Law and Property from 1992 until his promotion to Chief Executive in November 2008. I am sure that the members will want to join me in showing their appreciation of John's long and distinguished service to Dudley. Does any member wish to speak?
Councillor Lowe.
Councillor Lowe?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It's one of those evenings, isn't it, where we are saying a significant shift to the left for one of our colleagues and a goodbye to one of our colleagues. And I think it shows between the two people 80 years of public service to local government. Now, John, I have known not just for his 6 years as Chief Executive, but actually for the years prior to that when he was working within the legal team. And certainly one of the challenges that I had as a newly elected member back in 2003, the first time, and I'm sure many of us have had, is not necessarily getting to know John, but is the ability to actually pronounce John's name. And I think never again will we need to build in to the members' induction Ponkrahartis or Polystyrene or John Polykonakis. The interesting thing, I actually had a piece of casework less than 6 months ago that actually called him Jane Ponkrahartis, so actually got it wrong on many levels. But the important note again is the dedication to public service. And John, I've made aware, actually has never missed one council meeting since taking the position. He has wore that wig on more often occasions than other members within this room have probably wore their own personal attire. But the important thing is there also some of the selfless acts that we probably have never mentioned with regard to the mayor's charity and support for the Mayor, because John hasn't just supported by turning up in his all whites and playing in the charity cricket match, and if I may say, actually taking the cricket match slightly too seriously each and every year. But he's turned up, he's bowled, he's fielded, but importantly, has also made a significant contribution to that Mayor and the charity. And not just at those events, to each and every one of those events. And of course would have been dismayed if we used the position as being Chief Executive to advertise that selfless work, but now we can actually raise awareness of that work that is being undertaken. John Polly epitomises Dudley Council, epitomises it, because what that role demonstrates is for 99% of our work, party politics can be put to one side in the interest of the people that each and every one of us serve. And that is why John can sit in that position with the absolute respect, not just of the ruling group, but of the opposition and of the other opposition, and indeed of each and every one of the 72 members. Because most chief executives actually serve the leadership and a small group around the cabinet. We can honestly say that John's door has been open for each and every one of the 72 members whenever they should need it. Now, we know that John originally came from Liverpool, but he's now, I would imagine you've been down here long enough now, John, to refer to yourself either as a Stourbridge bloke or a Dudley bloke, whichever you want to. Obviously not a greater Birmingham bloke, because that would be taking it significantly too far. And I look forward to our days again catching up down in Stourbridge over the weeks and months where John will walk down Stourbridge on a Saturday morning, copy of the Times under his arm, snazzy pair of white trainers, go into Cafe Nero, hide from the family and enjoy a latte or two or three or four. Obviously, with the cricket, he's been able to do his waistline, or with the cycling that he undertakes. So, John, again, not just personally, but I'm sure on behalf of each and every one within the Labour group and each and every one of us throughout this whole council, we applaud the service that you've done. And on behalf of the people of Dudley, we wish you a very, very happy retirement. And importantly, he's already ruled himself out of any consultancy work.
Councillor Sparks. Councillor Sparks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to place on record my thanks to John for the support that he gave me whilst I was leader of the council, but also for the way in which he was able to provide particular insights on the workings of other Black Country councils and how we've been able to develop the Black Country as the foundation for, hopefully, a better West Midlands. Final point I'd like to say is also to thank John for the way in which, when he was active in the Law Society, the way he helped to put Dudley on the map. I think that he's making the right decision at the right time, and he's handing over a council that will be much more able to deal with the 21st century. Thank you.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'm very fortunate basically to be on the Appointments Committee, actually the first employed John. I believe that John is probably the safest pair of hands that Dudley's ever been under. His thoughts have always been put Dudley first, and his support for every member of this chamber, irrespective if he's the leader or not, the support was always there. As Mayor, the support John gives the mayoral position is tremendous. And I think every mayor, basically, who's been mayor of this borough, thank him for that. And John, I wish you very much all the very best on your retirement, and please enjoy it. I think you deserve it.
Councillor Rachel Harris.
Councillor Rachel Harris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My colleagues have covered John's work. As we normally view the Chief Executive, we either see him here in the Council chamber, supporting the Cabinet, the leader, or as individual members dealing with him on a one-to-one basis. Not very often, normally, if you're a backbencher, but we rely on our chief exec to keep things ticking over. However, I'd like to cover another facet of the experience and the work that I've seen John employ over the years in the field of health. I have to say that his work, particularly on supporting and developing the current clinical commissioning group, has been recognised by outside visitors as both unique and absolutely essential to some of the things that are going on at the moment. But I can also say that as the former chair of the Primary Care Trust, I worked very closely with John over the years and found his calm and quiet approach to steering us through sometimes quite choppy and troubled partnership negotiations was not just reassuring, but clearly brought out the best in everything that took health forward in Dudley. He's certainly been recognised for that locally, but I think that most residents of Dudley wouldn't realise that we do owe him a debt of gratitude over the years for quietly working away there in the background and keeping us safe and steady as we went through some tremendous changes in both the health economy and the social care economy. And actually, I think in Dudley, we don't always recognise we've been through immense changes in terms of the local authority and the way that the whole face of how we work as a council has changed. So I'd like to say thank you, John, and again, do enjoy that retirement.
Councillor Pat Hall.
Councillor Pat Hall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep it brief, as colleagues have touched on most of John's attributes. John is probably the first officer that newly elected members meet when they attend annual council. He's there waiting with his door wide open, pen in hand, ready to pounce to get you to sign your declaration. And that open door policy continues. He was there in 2004, in June 2004, when I got elected, and his door has been open ever since. You know when John is at work at Dudley Council because that door is wide open. It's not just slightly ajar, it is wide open. Any member can knock the door and walk in, and John will stop whatever he's doing, and he will give you the time and effort on whatever query members have. So he's been a chief executive that has fully supported members. I can honestly say, Madam Mayor, I haven't noticed any difference in the advice and the way that advice has been given from being in control for 8 years to now being in opposition for almost 3. That advice has been straight down the middle. It's been very fair, political, been totally non-political, and the advice given has been absolutely straight. But it's not just in cricket that our chief exec has excelled. There was a football match at the Dell quite a few years ago, and I can remember trying to still recapture my youth. I did actually take out the chief exec with a very lunging tackle. I think he's still got the bruises, yeah. I think this is the right time for John to go. There are a lot of changes as regards this council structure and with a transformation agenda. And it would have been easy for John to remain in post, but I think he's taken the very brave decision. It's to his credit that he's taken this decision, and I think he leaves with I think the respect and admiration of members from all sides politically. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I knew John from the year 2000 when I first got elected to the council. Totally new, hadn't got a clue what was going on, and made shadow cabinet for law and property. I thought, oh my goodness, what that's going to be like. And I went upstairs and I met John, and I thought, I can train this man, definitely train him in what I want to do. John is so quiet with the way he helps people. No bluster, just quiet. And when you won, I think, John, it seems ages ago now, the Solicitor of the Year, wasn't it, for the council? Do you remember that? I was rooting through my cupboards the other day, and I've still got the box with the glasses and things in it as a reminder, and I thought, and I got them out and I put them on. I think they'll be the Christmas glasses this year. I'll use them. But John deserves everything like that because He's not pretentious. He's not, braggart. And he's not that at all. He's just quiet, steady, normal. Well, I think you're normal, John, yes. And people can rely on you. This is the point. We know if you go to John, he'll help you, which he does. And I think you're going to be sorely missed. I will miss you. And I think most of the councillors will miss you as well. Thank you for doing the job you have done, and I'm proud to have met you and worked for you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Father Christmas again. Father Christmas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is it particularly warm in here? Madam Mayor, again, as a councillor, we've not known John for that many years at this end of the chamber, that many months, sorry. But as a person, I've known him for many, many years as a customer, in the days when he was particularly smart. I did speak to him a little earlier today, and I said to him that I bet he's enjoying this next few days, winding down and what have you. He says, not at all. I've enjoyed the job from the day that I took it over, right to now, and I shall enjoy the next few days until it ends. I wish him well in retirement, assuming he is going to retire, and if he does, he won't need these suits that he has around, but I do sell casual wear, John. Thank you.
Councillor Les Jones.
Councillor Les Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had to speak, really, because there are two things that strike me particularly about John. With the conversations we've had about Councillor Sparks standing aside from the Leader of the Council and what Councillor Harley said about that, John has been there through quite a number of transitions of leadership of this council in recent years, perhaps more than we have historically in that time. But John, and certainly anyone else in here who's been prepared to listen to me, will know what enormously high esteem I hold the whole of the legal profession in. But in John's case, I am going to make an exception because not only is he a competent lawyer, which I think goes for most of them, he has a distinct advantage over many of them, that he always speaks honestly to you about whether you're right or wrong. What I love to see with John is in meetings, and I'm going to make reference to the fact that that Councillor Sparks made. John's work hasn't just been what he's done within Dudley Council and its confines, but across the whole of the Black Country. His engagement and his manner and his style of approach has actually allowed many, many situations that could have been contentious and a little bit heated and difficult calm down and come to a point where we could all reasonably agree on things. And he's done that not just in the Black Country, but across the whole of the West Midlands. He's played a major part in most of our other authorities that sit around us, the police authority being one of them, over a good number of years, where his stable and steady advice has been crucial to us working together across seven metropolitan authorities. And in the wider context of, I think, the respect that John's held in, on a national level has made a difference to how he can get our point across when working with his peers. And all of those things are most important, Madam Mayor, and whoever the new Chief Executive stepping into his shoes is going to have an awful lot to live up to. One thing that does strike me, though, we tend to think of civil servants, whether in local government or nationally, as being the yes minister style person. And I would never suggest that John is anything like, I've forgotten his name now, it's Sir Humphrey, that's right. Not he's anything like Sir Humphrey, except in one sense. I remember on many, many occasions in this chamber, in other meetings where there have been a lot of people present, or even sitting just one-to-one having a chat, where you're expounding all of the theories and the ideas about how you want things to move forward. And John always managed to give you that reassuring smile, very slight smile, and a little nod, and before coming to the point where he finally goes, no, Councillor Jones, I don't think that's possible. And that will be an abiding memory. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Crumpton.
Councillor Crumpton.
Mayor, I'll be quite quick as well. I think people will remember about 3 or 4 years ago when we, unfortunately, Mark, who was then the Children's Services Director, fell ill. And John had to take on board quite a lot of work with Children's Services at that time, including the Ofsted inspection, which I'm sure he'll know and love, as it happened to him. But what I wanted to put forward was about the Dudley Safeguarding Children's Board and the work that he did as chair of that board for 2 or 3 years, I think it was, overall, and how he brought that forward at a time when you know, things don't go well sometimes within the children's world, and we had a serious case review or two to deal with at the time. And I remember actually when I took over this role having to go into that Safeguarding Children's Board, and you suddenly find all these things coming at you when you're in there, and you wonder what to do as a cabinet member in that role. And he was very useful, that I could sit down with John and he could talk me through what, to me, is probably one of the most serious things you have to deal with within this role, but how you then actually went through each stage of it and what it meant. And I think that was deeply important, both for me but also for the Children's Board to get through what was going on there. The other thing that I wanted to point out was that at the moment he's the Chief Executive with the lead on the child sexual exploitation strategy that the West Midlands is taking forward at the moment, and we in Dudley are benefiting from that. You know, but we do well with it, that side of things anyway, but we're definitely benefiting from that, and I want to thank him for his work in that. What people don't know, and a lot of you won't know here, some of you who have been mayors and leaders will know, is the amount of time that John spends outside of the council's time actually going to the number of events he goes to. It won't be far off, and I'm not belittling the mayor's role, but it will not be far off the number of events that the mayor actually goes to over the year, and what he's asked to do at the last moment to get up on stage and, you know, and present things. I think that's wonderful. And the final thing that I wanted to thank John for is actually quite a personal thing. I wanted to thank him for letting my wife Lynn actually dance with somebody on a dance floor that knew what they were doing. So thank you, John.
Councillor Tyler.
Councillor Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Les Jones just referred to it briefly. We don't realise that John has supported the police panel and before that the police committee for a number of years. And last year when we had this traumatic time when we lost our good friend and colleague Bob Jones, it was critical that we had common sense and reliability behind us when we went through the procedures that we had to. John's service to the community then was invaluable, and thank you, John. I'm glad that someone mentioned cricket. There's still someone in this room who tripped me up on the cricket match, and Stuart's still the favourite. You were closest to me when I fell over. But John, I have mentioned to you, he's a devoted Red, a Liverpool supporter. If you need tickets, just let me know. I would have offered the same to David, but he'd have to go in a balaclava, being a blue. So, long and happy retirement to both of you.
Councillor Annis.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be very brief. I've got a bit of a bad throat, but I'll try to speak as loud as possible. A lot of what I wanted to say has been covered by the leader and colleagues, but I want to thank John on a personal note. Since I became a councillor in 2007, John has helped ever such a lot on advice, on, you know, every area that I've approached him for. But thank you, John, for that. And being the organiser of the cricket matches, you can't get out of this. You will be coming back to support us and watch us. And I think on that note, what I will say is your team has defeated us several times. I think you should take on that retirement the winning trophy with you. I'm sure everybody will agree with that. Thank you very much, John.
Councillor Elcock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I share an interest with John in a different place to this, and I see him most Saturdays or Sundays, and I know his interest in that has greatly increased just lately, and I'm very pleased to see that. And again, as I said for Councillor Sparks, I'm glad to see him now in his prime taking a step back, and I just wish him a long and healthy, happy life. He served Dudley very, very well, again with great integrity, and we thank you for that, John. It's been a pleasure to know you, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Father Christmas. Now, that's a sentence which I never thought I'd be using in this council chamber. And elected members, thank you very much indeed for those comments. I've been blessed with working with 5 great leaders whilst I've been Chief Executive. I think I'm on my 7th Madam Mayor in that time. And I've worked with some remarkable people. Dudley has elected members and officers who are truly exceptional. My time as Chief Executive has been both a great privilege and a great pleasure, and I thank you all very much indeed for
that. Post of Strategic Director People Services. I call on Councillor Pete Lowe.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I rise just to say that subject to the necessary pre-employment checks, Anthony Oakham be appointed to the post of Strategic Director for People Services in accordance with the salary and terms and conditions of employment applicable to that post with effect from a date to be agreed. That Mr Oakham be appointed as the officer responsible for the Council's statutory adult social care and children's services responsibilities. I therefore move, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder?
Formally seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
There's nobody else indicating.
All agreed? Aye. That is carried. There is no urgent business, so this concludes the extraordinary meeting of the Council. I wish you all a very happy Christmas and a peaceful and prosperous New Year.
Please do standing for the worship of the Mayor.